Welcome to my channel. In this video I will explain the 6 packs. I will focus on each of those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 indicators, how each one of them works and what it does and how we can use it during flight especially. So we will start by explaining each one and then take a flight and then see how each one of those can help us control and fly the aircraft. Great, let's begin. So how are you today? Please pay special attention because this is very important subject today, all right? Okay, great. Now, let's, he has a little bit of cold, the student pilot. Now, the first one here, as its name says, is the airspeed indicator. Now, we will have a dedicated, perhaps, video about airspeed because there are many, like around the 3 notions of airspeed. Like we have airspeed, we have a true airspeed, and we have a ground speed, etc. So we will explain those additional concepts in the future. But for the time being, this gauge measures the speed of the aircraft with respect to the air that is flowing under its wings. So during the flight, I will explain a little bit about that, and we'll explain also how this interesting instrument functions. What is this? This is the attitude indicator. So this tells us the attitude, the horizontal and vertical attitude of the aircraft. So don't forget, this is not a kind of a turn indicator. This is the turn indicator. So this is not if our attitude is to the right, this means the aircraft is lean to the right. Does not mean that the aircraft is turning right. So this is not to tell you that the aircraft is going up or down, but rather than this is the attitude of the aircraft. Now, so we'll explain this, what it means in here. So it could be that the attitude of the aircraft is up because we have a higher angle of attack, you remember from last video, but in fact the aircraft is descending. So this is why the attitude is like the angle of the aircraft vertically and horizontally. Great, so we will see this one and how it works. This is the altitude indicator, and I think it is the simplest one. It just tells us our indicated altitude. When you say indicated, again, you notice here, it's not like, so it's not like our altitude is 5,000 feet. No, our indicated, because all those instruments are subject to errors and they are based on estimations. This is quite interesting. Great, now we come back to this one here, which has 2-in-1. So this is the turn indicator. And this is, in fact, if the aircraft is banked to the right or to the left, this will show. So if you see here, there are 2 lines. Is if we turn the aircraft to here, this means the bank angle is 5 degrees. And if we do the math, it will take us 2 minutes to have a 360-degree turn. And this is a pleasant way not to annoy our passengers if we want to have a very soft turning. But this one also deserves, in the next video, a very well explanation about how we can use this ball to measure the quality and of the turn by using all the 3 controls of the aircraft. Okay, but this is again here for simplicity for this video. This is just a few. It will show us the indicator of the turn of the aircraft. What is this? This is also straightforward. It's an indicator of our heading. So our heading east, and as you can see here, west. Always like in airports, we don't write the 0. So here 6 means 60 degrees, 3 means 30 degrees, and north is the 0. And 330 is 33, so they don't put the 0. So if they say head the 300 degrees, this means it is here written as 30. Great. So this is why whenever we don't put a 0, we don't call it 30. We call it a 30. And the same thing actually about airports. We will talk later on about. You remember when we say we are in which runway? We are today on runway. We will depart from runway 30. It's wrong when we used to say we will depart from runway 30, because in fact it's not 30, it is 300 magnetic north. So this is why whenever the number is not the actual, we just read the digits. And this is why we say head 24 and then etc. Or we can say head 240, which is indicating that it is 24. Fine, so this is the heading indicator. This one is, of course, also easy. It's the vertical speed indicator. So if it is higher, this means we are climbing. And if it is low, this means below zero, this means we are descending. And always pay attention to if we are descending sharply based on our elevation, because safety is about being in the sky rather than close, or being in a dangerous situation close to the ground. Great. Now, how does those 6 instruments work? And also we will cover this compass a little bit. This is a magnetic compass, a simple one. This and this together, they are quite similar, but they are not the same. So I'll also explain when we are flying the difference between each one of those. Now, how do those 6 packs function? Do they work on electricity or on how? So to do that, let me start the aircraft. This is left on here. Okay, so we'll keep it on off now. And after we start the aircraft, we will take a flight, a small flight, and we will explain and show you how each of those gauges work in real flying scenarios. All right, for us now, just pay attention to this here. Yeah, okay. He is coughing, the passenger. So this is off. Okay. And of course, all of them are off. Okay. Now, just to tell you, the rest of the gauges, we will focus on them for in future videos. For those are used for navigation mostly. Yeah. Now, let's turn on the aircraft. So parking brake is on. Make sure always the parking brake is on, because once we turn on the engine, this is on neutral. Once we turn on the engine, we may have the aircraft start to move. Okay, so we are here. There is no one close to the airport. We turn on the battery. We turn on this is the alternator to generate electricity once the engine is up. We can leave this off, by the way. You can turn it on later on. We turn on the fuel pump, so we start to have some pressure. And we turn on the landing light and the taxi light. You can turn on all the lights immediately, no problem. Great. And this is the mixture is fully up. And now we again one. No one. Yeah, and anyway, the runway, it seems busy. And look here, interesting. When we turn on the battery, only this one functioned, and the rest didn't run except when we turned on the engine. So how can, for example, the altitude indicator work based on the engine? And this is what we'll explain during the flight. Just bear with me for a minute. Great. Now assume the aircraft is warmed, because it was actually working. So the oil temperature needs a little bit of time to raise. Okay. All right. Everything is okay. Transponder is on, and it's reporting the altitude. Now when we receive the signal, we can click on identify. We send the signal to identify who we are, the aircraft number and the altitude. Great. So we are in the same airport, which is Auckland International, and we are here. So let's go here and depart from runway 30. Release the parking brake. We sometimes call it hand brake, which is not right. But anyway, because we normally release it by hand. Yeah, it's nice weather today. Not very cloudy as last time. And now we can take the permission from ATC before we get into the runway. Hello ATC, give us permission to, okay, you are permitted. So we will cover ATC in the future. This is not very easy, by the way. So yeah, there is a very interesting concept when learning is if you break something large into small pieces, you enjoy every piece, and then you can do so many things within time. Now when we put the throttle gradually, why? Because the aircraft will have the tendency to move left. We balance it with the rudder to the right. Now we are 60 knots. Raise the nose. And this is an amazing aircraft, how realistic. If you raise it and then you are hesitant, if you drop it a little bit, the aircraft will drop immediately and you crash. So this is why if one day you fly a real aircraft similar to this, once you pull the they call it like you pull and you go off, you don't release it at all. If you release it, the aircraft will immediately go down again. How does it look from outside today? Yeah, so we drifted to the left. So normally when we take off, the highest recommendation is to climb to 500 feet and to stay in line with the runway. Okay, so our focus today is on the instruments. So let's see how each one of those instruments work. Quite simple. All right, now we are around 1,000 feet. Let's start the explanation. We start with the airspeed indicator. So now I will release the aircraft so that we fly straight level without me needing to hold. So and what do we call this? Trimming the aircraft. Yeah, so let's leave it this way here. We release a little bit the power. And okay, now airspeed indicator. How does it work? There is a, let's see it. There is this. You see this one here? It has a hole. Okay, so I don't want to crash. No, we are still climbing. So you see this one, it has a hole. And also the aircraft has two holes from two sides. Let's assume this one in here and also from one from the other side. Some aircrafts, they have only one, some of them they have only two. So let's explain what is this. That device under, it's not a device, like a very simple thing, and it has a heater here. Okay, this is called pitot. You see this? It's pitot. Yeah, that one, in fact, when the aircraft is flying, the dynamic air pressure is going through that hole and it's coming to inside this machine. And we call this the dynamic pressure because it's dynamic based on the speed of the aircraft. Sorry, on this one here. And because whenever we are gaining altitude also, the density of the air drops. So if we just base the airspeed on the dynamic pressure, it won't be accurate. Why? Because each time we measure the speed will be different based on the altitude of the aircraft. Okay, so we can lower the volume slightly of the aircraft so that we can hear each other better. Yeah, so this one takes two tubes. One which is static pressure and one is dynamic pressure. And inside it, there is simply a mechanism to subtract the the static pressure from the dynamic pressure, and this will give us an accurate indicator. This is what's called an indicator of our speed. Nice. So a very simple machine. Inside there's a kind of a pump, and that pump receives, as we mentioned, 2 tubes. And this tells us something interesting in here, that this one does not need electricity to function, right? And then we will do a test, because we will turn off the electricity of the aircraft while flying to see how it will behave. All right, great. So now we know how the airspeed indicator works, right? So it's a physical mechanical machine that takes 2 tubes, one which is the dynamic pressure and one is the static pressure, does the subcontracting automatically, and this will tell us this is why, to mention something before we close this instrument, is this is called the pitot, which is the hole that you can see. This one here, I'm sorry, 1 second. Yeah, you see, so this one in here, if this gets blocked, it is very dangerous. This is why they protect this highly. And how it can be blocked? It can get iced, because in cold weather, ice can build on this. If it blocks it, this instrument will stop functioning. This is why when the weather is very cold and we are afraid that it will get hot, so we can turn on this, and this will have, there is a small heater inside the tube that the heater will turn on. It will heat it and prevent it from getting iced. Cool? Great. So now we move to the second instrument, this one, which is what? The attitude indicator. Now you notice here it shows us the horizontal, the rolling of the aircraft, and the vertical indicator, which is of course the angle. And now when you look carefully in here, just for us to see, there are degrees. So now we are flying straight, so we can measure the degree. So this is like 10 degree. You can see it from this side, by the way, easier. So this is in here 10 degree. So this is why when we turn, a very good turn is around 5 degrees, which is this much, you know, to be pleasant for the passengers. And this is the vertical now, which is also in 10%. You remember we taught last time that 16% of angle of attack for this aircraft is the maximum lift, so that we can have the maximum lift based on 16% angle of attack. So once we go higher than 16, in fact the lift will drop. This is why, if you see here, so if we put it on 20%, okay, we don't stall at 20%. Why? But you notice here we are not climbing that much. Also, so we are again losing altitude instead of gaining altitude. Okay, even if we increase the power, this will happen. Right. So this is a very nice indicator, and we have to keep an eye on it. And now we explain how we can have our eyes keep monitoring those instruments while we are in a flight. Good. So this is then the how does it function? We said this one, it has a small like ball that is based on pressure, static and dynamic. How does this function? Well, simply, there is inside this a gyroscope. So what is a gyroscope? You see this spinning disc that we used to play when we are kids? We spin the disc, we put it on the ground, it does not fall left or right, because so when anything is rotating, it has to keep a balance based on the action, based on the center of gravity of the rotational angle of a certain disc. So you can find it on Google, the gyroscope. So this has a 360-degree gyroscope, which means like 2 gyroscopes together, and they are balanced. So once the airplane turns, the gyroscope will know that, oh, there is a turn, and it shows this. Now, normally gyroscopes, they need 2 rotating, and this one, it needs 1 or 2 rotating. It needs 1 motor to rotate what certain disc. So from where do we get power to, because you remember, if we get power from the battery, assume the battery fails, this means all of this will fail? No. So what turns the gyroscope inside this and the rest is a vacuum pump, mechanical pump, mounted to the engine. And it's like, you know, the vacuum cleaner you have in your house. There is a vacuum pump mounted to the engine that, while it is sucking vacuum from this device, it makes the motor, or makes the gyroscope turns. What does it mean? So this does not need electricity at all. So even if the battery got completely disconnected, this will continue to function. And then what we do? We will test it. Good. So this is how this one works. This, how does it work? Does it have a gyroscope? This one, no. What it needs is only the dynamic or static pressure. No. So this works only on the static pressure, because once we climb high, the density of the air will drop, and this will just measure or estimate the altitude based on a formula that's based on the density of the air. Simple. Good. So this one is just based on the atmospheric pressure, and the altitude it drops based on that. And here also there is a lot of tuning, by the way. This one also deserves a video, because as you can see, this 110, 115 is the atmospheric pressure that based on which we can tune, you know, that we can tune this device. Great. Let's come to the vertical speed. How does the vertical speed work also? Now this one works not on the air pressure. No, it works based on another gyroscope. So once we are I'm sorry, I made a mistake. This also works based on the air pressure. So there is a kind of, let's try to stabilize the aircraft. Yeah. So this one works is, it takes air from the dynamic pressure, and it leaks those. So in simple terms, how does it know if you are climbing? Is if there is a positive trend in the air density. Positive or negative? Yeah. So if the air density is reducing, this means we are climbing. And if the air pressure is increasing, this means we are descending. So it can sense such information and indicate it in this. This is why, in fact, this one, normally in an aircraft, even in this one, if you look carefully, now when this goes down, this means we are descending. There is a delay of something around half a second between what the actual aircraft is doing and what this is showing. Nice? All right, now we come to this. This is basically a compass or a gyroscope. It is a gyroscope. So when we start the aircraft, okay, we align this with this, because this is a real simple magnetic compass. And this is not a compass. We align this with this, and using a gyroscope, every time we go left, the gyroscope will measure how much left did we go. This is why in real flights, every 15 minutes, there will be some errors between this, and pilots, when they are flying to their destination, they need to recalibrate this. So there is a calibration knob. So they look here like, oh, this shows 120, this is 120. If there is a drift between this and this is, they assume to be accurate, because this is the compass, and they tune this based on this. But of course, they need to make sure this is giving them the accurate measurement by not putting a mobile phone in here, because this is sensitive to magnetic fields, like any magnetic compass. Cool. Now, we come to the last one, which is the turn indicator. So as you can see in here, when we turn or bank right, Okay, this will show us the bank angle, and it will show also on the attitude indicator. But the difference between this and this means that the aircraft is actually tilted to the right. But it does not mean that the attitude of the aircraft is right, but maybe it might show this way, but in fact the aircraft having a straight level due to reasons we will explain them later on. All right, so this is why if you want to turn, okay, which one do you use? Okay, you use this mainly. All right, this one you keep an eye on it, but this one is mainly used for turning. And this ball is, we will have a special video to talk about the quality of turns and how we can achieve them, and how if we are turning fast we may have a stall, and how we can prevent that. We can manage the quality of the turn by using all controls, by using the from outside, by using the rudder. Okay, let's straight level the aircraft by using the rudder, this, okay, and by using the ailerons and the elevators here. Okay, so we can use the three together to have a perfect turn. All right, good. So where are we now? If we look at the map, I think we went very far away from the airport. Yeah, we are here and the airport is here. Okay, so we were talking, the aircraft is just flying, and you know. Okay, so, and it is dangerous because we have high terrains in here. But okay, as we promised to show you is how this gauges work. So let's start by this experiment. Let's climb to 2,000 feet. Yeah, so let's begin the experiment. We are now a little bit more than 2,000 feet. Okay. So all instruments are working, and let us turn off the electricity. Okay, so now everything in the aircraft is electricity wise is off, except you notice all those important gauges. Now this one is the turn indicator is also off, because as we mentioned, this one is the only indicator that works on electricity, and all these, they don't work on electricity, but rather they take their power from a vacuum pump that is mounted to the engine. So this is why for anything that may happen in the aircraft as a fire that cuts all electricity, the aircraft will continue to fly, as you can see. Great, now let's turn on the... Now what happens to those instruments even if the engine is off? Right? Shall we try this? Yeah. So this is our airport here to the left, as you can see. So while we are going in the direction of the airport, so in any emergency we can land, let us turn off the engine. So the first experiment we do in here is assume we turn off this. 1, 2. So now we cut completely the magnetos. And let's look carefully. You notice all instruments are working. Very interesting. But of course, you notice because I have no thrust, I need to put back. So I'll show you this, of course, sorry. Yeah. And why this is also off, we can just show it. So you notice here we are flying without engine. However, why those instruments are still working? Who can say? It's because the propeller is facing the air and it continues to turn. And when it turns, the vacuum pump is mounted to the propeller and it is supplying energy to the vacuum pump. But you notice here the instruments, look here, look at this attitude indicator, how it's drifting. So it's not accurate. You notice how? Why? Because we don't have sufficient vacuum. Real aircraft. Okay. You notice here, it's not reacting. All right. So engine is on. And amazing experience, right? And a surprise, now we will go and land. And by this we finish the chapter for today, and looking forward to meeting you on future videos. What is our altitude? Is 500 feet. And so we will do future practice to know how to do those kind of landings. Now, of course, to a pilot standard, they don't like this kind of landings. But for us, yeah. Cool. So let's go inside the parking in here. Park the aircraft and close this video. I think I explained, I'm trying to remember if I missed anything. I think I explained also the calibration between the magnetic compass and the heading indicator. So now I think you know each of those 6 instruments, not only what they do, but also how they work. And this will give you, this is why pilots are trained on that. This is why they know, for example, if they lose electricity, ahead of time they know which instrument will continue to work and which instrument will stop working. And they know the important parts of the aircraft. So I'm gonna stop here next to the Southwest airline. Parking brake. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Stay tuned. Bye-bye.